Hello and welcome everyone to the Collegiate Chess League Summer 2025 season brought to you by our sponsor Susquehanna. My name is Joe and today we have the College Team Chess Battle Championship Finals. Today we've got an exciting matchup. Last week we saw two teams battle their way through quarterfinals and then to the finals. It's the number 1 seed versus the number 2 seed here in Division 1. We've got University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill versus Virginia Tech. So for Team Chess Battle, the format, it's 2 players on a team, but only one game on one board being played. The lower rated player is the hand. The higher rated teammate can just give them advice and help them out. So they're going to be on a voice call. The number 1 seed is going to start with the white pieces. That's Naveen Prabhu and Noah Tomford Totes from North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Noah is the brain, basically 2600 rated on rapid time control. Naveen is going to be the hand, 2200 rated. And their second seed challengers, Thomas Lane and Krishna Saketh Mutnuri, both from Virginia Tech. Thomas Lane is the brain, 2400, and Krishna is the hand, 2379. So this is rapid time control, 10 plus 10 this week. Last week it was 10 plus 2. So they're going to have a little bit of extra time on the increment. And with extra time, that favors the higher rated team, which is UNC. So they are the number 1 seed for a reason. Their average team rating coming in at over 2400, 2414 to be precise. Whereas the second seed team from Virginia Tech, their average team rating comes out to 2396. So just below 2400. Now, interestingly, Krishna is the higher rated hand at 2379, whereas Naveen is only 2221. Really, that's only going to make a major difference if they're in a time scramble where the hand can't really receive much help from the brain, and the hand is just going to have to make moves. But with that 10-second increment, I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. So really, Chapel Hill should be the favorite by rating and by hand strength. That being said, we have games starting very soon, so please stay tuned. I'll be right back. Hello, I'm back. Hello, Chelato, and hello to all the fans tuning in. I was just telling everyone about the format for today. It's Team Chess Battle. It's the championship match, the finals, the ultimate showdown between the final two teams. We've got UNC at Chapel Hill in North Carolina, and then you have Virginia Tech. So, interestingly, we can see the path actually of their matches. UNC Chapel Hill, they started off against Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada. They won their match 1.5 to a half. Virginia Tech won in overtime against IIT Roorkee, I believe in India. So that, I guess, was tied 1-1 and then tied again 2-2 in overtime. So they went to double overtime where they won 3-2. And then in the semifinals, the second round, UNC at Chapel Hill beat KPR Institute of Engineering and Technology, also in India, also by a score of 1.5 to a half. And then Virginia Tech beat Iowa State 1.5 to a half. And that brings us to the finals here today. We should have games starting any minute. Mohamed, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Hope everyone's doing well on Saturday. I'll try my best to be a good tour guide. Although, as some of you have seen, it's not been the best. In fact, I've been quoted as being, quote unquote, a terrible tour guide. So, hopefully the tour of the College Team Chess Battle Championship will be a bit smoother than previously. Although I shouldn't say previously from last week's Team Chess Battle Championship stream, because Yasun and Blood Queen did a marvelous job. How close was it between me and Ben Feingold? It was not close. In fact, it was so not close that I don't think that they even considered me. I don't know if I was even scratching any lists of potential commentators, although I will say this. I did see not only did Nemo and Benjamin Bach go, but Anna Kramling also went, and all three of those commentators I've had the honor and privilege to commentate with for the Collegiate Chess League specifically. So, I'm in good company here on the Collegiate Chess League channel. I can say that the CCL commentators have made it far and wide. So, also, I got to shout out Jules Gambit, who was at Chestival in Vegas, also a former CCL commentator. Joe next to Tyler. I've met Tyler 1, I feel like a few times, at least at TwitchCon. I'm not sure if I've seen him around elsewhere, but Tyler 1 obviously very entertaining. Brings a lot of good energy to chess. Tyler 1 himself is a very strong chess player. He could probably beat me with the cow opening, no less. Famous cow opening enjoyer. Learned from none other than the source, Anna Kramling, who I was also lucky enough to hang out with, as referenced by my terrible tour guides. Anyhow, games should be starting really soon here. Interestingly, the players are required to join a fair play Zoom call, as we take our matches very seriously here at chess.com. This is a prized event. The prizes for this, we're actually giving away 2 6-month diamond memberships for first place. That's additive to a full year. Interestingly, I think some of these players are probably titled, but they can gift their membership prizes to their friends or anyone really. They could gift them to their enemies as well. But second place will not go home empty-handed either. They will receive 2 3-month diamond memberships. So both teams are guaranteed some prizes already as it is, just by making it here. But we also have a third place match, which should be going on. Third place wins 2 2-month diamond memberships, and fourth place gets 2 1-month diamond memberships. All right, so games should be starting. There is also a delay on the events page. So, yeah, let me see. Here we go. Let me pull this up for you, folks. So we've got Virginia Tech, gonna start with the black pieces, UNC Chapel Hill, abbreviated to just UNC Hill, with the white pieces. So I'm excited to see how this match will go. It's a best of 2. So starting with the white pieces is a pretty big advantage, I think. Starting with D4 here. And this is different than hand and brain. The brain has full advice they can give. So it's not like they're just choosing a piece. Shinoya, we have Chess TV time right now. So welcome to the front page of chess.com's broadcast, basically. This is the Collegiate Chess League Summer 2025 season Team Chess Battle Finals. We also have multiple divisions going on, actually. So this is just the top division out of 7 that are playing. This game looks like we have a London system from white. And these opponents knew their pairings all the way from last week, so it's possible they could have been doing some prep work. All right, E4 is in. I like E4. Just fighting for the center. We're threatening to take on D5. And why is that significant to take on D5? Because black would be left with a stranded pawn. The IQP, as they call it, isolated queen's pawn. And that's important because that could be a potential weakness. So we see black trading, taking on E4. Knight takes, hits the bishop, hits the knight. And so black doesn't want to initiate this trade, perhaps opening for more trades. So the bishop tucks back, offering some support, some defense to the knight on F6. Now, it's an interesting strategy. With white, you really want to get a win because white has that initial move advantage. Black would be happy to get a draw because then the second game they have white and then they can push to win. So we see a trade here from white, and now c3, just blunting this diagonal from this bishop. Very good bishop here on the long diagonal. But yeah, as white, I don't necessarily want to trade too much because I want to keep material on the board to use in an attack. Otherwise, if you trade too much, you might risk losing too much material to really get anything going, and that could be seen as somewhat drawish, actually. So black with the bishop here, we might see the move g6 and fianchetto the bishop. That will also blunt this diagonal of the light square bishop. Interestingly, queens are still on their starting squares. This queen can't leave too far away. We have to make sure our bishop's protected. And now black's turn to push in the center. There's a single pawn in these central D and E files. So black has this majority in the center. And this bishop now is opened up. This bishop is hit, of course. So this bishop really has to make a move. There's no other counterpunch really that white can be considering. So therefore, bishop has a few options. We don't want to go here, as again, our queen has to keep an eye over our bishop. Now also, if this pawn goes another square, we can see a fork, but there's no support that black has over e4. Maybe they'll support with one of their rooks or queen and try for something like this, but odds are white will be perfectly in time to control e4. But once this bishop moves, I'm suspecting this bishop might want to come out and play and maybe pin the knight to the queen. That could be annoying. This pawn on c3 does a good job of keeping this knight at bay. So even if we get pinned, we could still inch our way up and try to get out of the pin while maintaining defense over our pieces, keeping an eye over e4. And we're not worried about the knight coming to d4, hitting our knight, maybe even our queen if we go to e2, or maybe even to c2. But we wouldn't go queen to c2 if the bishop comes here. Maybe because, you have a punch thrown at h7, but the point of bringing the bishop to g4 would be to pin the knight to the queen, and if the queen leaves that pin, black could maybe just take the knight and damage the structure. So we do see bishop to g4. This was one of the main ideas behind pushing the pawn to e5, opening up this diagonal. So really solid development for black. White could just challenge the bishop immediately. The bishop, of course, can tuck back, maintaining the pin. My idea is something like queen to e2, but perhaps black could try supporting this pawn. I don't know if they could necessarily push to e4, but we'll have to see how white reacts to this. One of the top ideas the computer is suggesting is actually bishop to e4, defending the knight, and proposing a queen trade. Now, I personally am not a fan of trading queens this early into the game. As I had mentioned earlier, white especially doesn't want to trade too much because you might risk drawing. However, this move is what's been played. Chapel Hill saying we're happy to go into an endgame because our bishop defends the knight, and we might even consider taking this knight, damaging your pawn structure, and weakening the support over this pawn. So you could remove the defender and then win the pawn after trading queens, getting out of this pen. So this comes with a bit of a bite to it. There's a punch being thrown here, and it's up to black to decide how they want to react and get out of this. Subaru saying you like black here. Yeah, that's definitely a take, I think, after this with the bishop coming out with the pen. I thought it was definitely looking like good chances for black, good development. But after this move, it looks like black doesn't really have any threats. Trading queens might just be beneficial to white, getting a rook onto the open file. Interestingly, though, a rook on d1 is still going to be pinned. So it's not like white is completely out of it just yet, but they might like that activity on the file. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure. With that being said, how serious would white be to take the knight into this endgame? Maybe if black doesn't trade queens, we might consider a move like queen to b3. And so that's a punch at this pawn. Maybe black will consider a move like queen to b6, threatening this pawn. Yeah, queen a4 also a strong idea, punching this knight for a second time. Maybe then black could play b5, which would be kind of annoying. But yeah, another good idea of queen a4, not only trying to attack the knight twice, but it's also lining up a discovery against the bishop on g4. So I like your idea there. Queen a4 is definitely a possibility for white now that we're out of this pen. Or at least the queen is not relied upon to defend the knight because the bishop here is defending the knight backwards. But yeah, a lot of time think here from Virginia Tech. They are talking amongst themselves, coming over their potential strategies. We talked about trading queens. We talked about moving the queen to b6. You could also go queen to c7. I was even thinking queen to e7. Computers also saying you could play rook to e8. All very logical moves. Yeah, queen a4, b5, you're saying is an overextension. It definitely weakens this diagonal, which our bishop is on. But I think black could just play rook to c8 at some point, defend the knight. The a-pawn could become weak. But I'm thinking if the queen comes to a4 and b5 is played, where does the queen go exactly? Because it seems to me anywhere you go, black can follow through with another attack. Like if you go here, the bishop can come back. If you go here, this bishop can come back. You can't really go anywhere this way. So really, you would just want to come back to like c2, probably. But okay, rook to e8 has been played. A lot of time spent there from Virginia Tech, and it seems to me like they're not sure if they want to trade queens or not. They weren't very comfortable necessarily going into an endgame. So they're playing a move here that they know is going to be a solid investment in the long run, getting a rook from a completely closed file to now a central semi-open file supporting their central pawn. And if white now trades queens, we know that their other rook will then join, and they'll have two central file rooks, which is very strong. So that's why we don't see a queen trade necessarily. Instead, queen to c2, developing the queen off the back rank, connecting the rooks, completing development, and a punch against the h pawn here. So g6, protecting the h pawn, but also creating that space for the bishop if they want to go back. And now white follows through, rook to e1. So we don't see any attempt necessarily. Well, rook e8 does overprotect the pawn, and it kind of needs overprotection. As I had mentioned previously, this defender of the pawn can be removed at white's will at any moment. So rook to e1, renewing the threat, essentially. Right, and there's no time to take the knight intermezzo because our bishop that takes the knight can come back to take. So right now might be a moment where black decides to give up the bishop pair for the knight, just to try to protect this pawn. That being said, I think black's probably going to be a little hesitant in doing so, and so they're probably looking for alternatives. This is a threat. Right, this is a problem. White has this bishop aiming at the knight that's defending the pawn. So right now, we have 3 attackers on the pawn, 3 defenders on the pawn, but one of them is unreliable. This bishop is eyeing the knight. So black has to react to this. This is a threat. I had mentioned taking on f3. This is one option, but I don't think it's the best option. I think black might be looking at queen to c7. It mirrors white's queen move, but it also defends the pawn. Now, something I'm not necessarily a big fan of is that the queen will then be opposite of our bishop as well. And so the pawn will be pinned. That's why we see black plays queen to a5, defending the pawn laterally in this direction. That begs the question, can we play b4? Is that a move? What do you guys think? Well, I guess there's always queen back to c7 if needed. All right, h3 played. So not going for my b4 idea. b4 might be a little overextending. So wow, h3 and just takes. Interestingly, when you fianchetto, you don't normally want to bring the bishop back, and especially because there's nothing on d1, so there's not really even a pin. But with the bishop on g3, there's no threat necessarily of g4 immediately, but it's lingering there in the long run. So the bishop didn't necessarily like going back to h5. It wasn't worth it. But the bishop also didn't go back to either of these squares. Maybe could have been tactically vulnerable. And so just simply takes. And now white has achieved something in the bishop pair. So the bishop pair can be very strong, can be very powerful. But I want to point out black's bishop they do have left is the dark squared bishop, which is controlling the long diagonal, and it's controlling the dark squares around black's king. This is the more valuable bishop for black. So giving up the light square bishop for the knight, maybe not so important. This bishop is a very key defender of the black king side. So this is a piece that white might aim to trade off in the future. Right now, it's not so easy to try and figure out how to do that. Something that comes to my mind is bring the queen in to get the bishop in. Usually, I like to have the queen and bishop lined up this way, but as you can see, bishop to f4 is blocked by that central e-pawn that black has in the center. Also, the queen on the d-file might get hit, so we see queen stepping up to b3. This knight opposite the queen with the rook lined up could have been potential pins. Like knight to d4 potentially was a threat, forking, trying to get that bishop pair back. So we see the queen step away. Also, I'm looking at this completely open d-file. This is a rook's dream. We would love to put our rook to d1. The problem is we might just be hanging an a-pawn. So we see that queen comes to b3 for multiple reasons. We're sidestepping this knight d4 idea, and we're also protecting our a-pawn at the same time. Throwing a punch against this b-pawn that we had mentioned might be a potential weakness in black's position. So we'll see what black does about that. And I really like how white's playing on the clock as well. If you'll notice the time difference, it's 2.5 minutes for Virginia Tech to 6 minutes for white. That is pretty significant, right? Especially considering just how much time it takes to make some critical decisions. Black might not have that time as the position gets more and more deep and more dangerous, right? As these opponents are starting to get their pieces more involved. I'm expecting rook a to d1 now. This looks like a no-brainer to me. We'll see what white does. I would definitely play this pretty quickly and try to keep up the pressure. So, yeah, there is maybe a new attack black can have on the queen, but I don't necessarily think this is that strong of a move. The queen will just move. But that being said, the knight could come here. And with the queen and rook doubled on the c file, your b pawn might be a little tender. But otherwise, I don't see why not. Okay. White is just signified. It's very clear. They don't want the rook on the d file, although it would control a lot of squares. They're really just going to pile up on this pawn. So black has a lot of defense, though. That is 4 pieces. This bishop will never be able to attack this pawn. So black needing to catch up on time here. They're playing a little copycat here. They're saying, you know what, if you're going to double up on my e-pawn, then I too will double up. That being said, this queen can also join the attack. So, yeah, doubled rooks for both sides. All 4 rooks on that e-file. And now, can Chapel Hill put the pressure? What are they going for? I think a queen move. There is 10-second increment, I will say. And Virginia Tech, they've made their previous moves fairly quickly. 2.5 minutes looked a lot lower when UNC had about 6 minutes on the clock still, but Chapel Hill, they're slowing down. They're pumping the brakes a bit. So they have about 4.5 minutes. It's a 2-minute advantage. But yeah, not as bad. We'll see how much time Virginia Tech now takes. So queen to c4, this is a good move. Pinning the knight to the queen. The queen is defended by the rook. But you don't want your pieces to be overloaded, right? So the question is, at some point, you know, white is going to try to pull this trigger, I suspect, and maybe isolate black's pawns and maybe even win the e-pawn. So this is what black has to consider. Is white going to take my knight? Well, you have to calculate, right? There's 2 ways to recapture. You know, if you take with the queen, take with the queen, and again, we're left with the 3-on-3 against this pawn. Now, when this bishop moves, it frees up our f-pawn. We could push. Now, this pawn's not pinned because the bishop defends the rook as well. So this pawn is not a pinned piece. This pawn can take things if needed. That being said, if you just push f4, you could also just push on through. I don't think black would do that, but I'm saying that black has options here. So yeah, Virginia Tech, they've spent 1.5 minutes so far on this one move. Now they're under a minute. So again, the time pressure is mounting, and this could be a big problem for black. They're going to have to pick up the pace here. So we see a move. Now, I think you probably want to take on c6. And I'm saying that because I just know that black is going to have a damaged pawn structure. Now, it could backfire because this pawn, like I said, is already defended. And these pawns are only weak if you have a meaningful way to attack them. They would both be on light squares. We would have given up our light square bishop. We would have given up our queen. That really remains our rooks as the only way to get in. And speaking of the rooks, we still have a b pawn, and they would have traded their b pawn and turned it into a c pawn, which means black actually would be the one to have the open b file. White would have to lift the rook and swing it over. So, yeah. Queen goes to d7. They make this move with less than a minute on their clock. UNC Chapel Hill now. It's up to them. And they've decided on B4, so they do not take the knight quite just yet. Interestingly, as I had mentioned, the B file opens up, so this could be preemptively trying to guard the B pawn. That being said, now black, maybe they can support this knight again. Or maybe they can play rook d8. Or they could shuffle. Wow, they go here, and the computer hates this move. Why? Check this move out. That's what we call a skewer. 3 minutes to find it. Is Chapel Hill gonna see it? Double question mark for black. That time pressure finally adding up. And the thing is, when you make a move like this, especially in time pressure, you're freaking out. You're panicking. You're like, oh my God, just play something. Put the rook opposite the queen, right? Checks out. As soon as you play it, you get this gut sinking feeling. You just know, you see it then, the blunder. And white, they find it pretty quickly. Less than 30 seconds for Virginia Tech. This is looking like a Chapel Hill Game 1 victory. It is just going to be an exchange, but when I say it's just an exchange, those material points are going to add up, because if you use your material properly, you know that you can then continue your attack. And after this trade here, what I'm seeing is a nice A4 B5 idea from white, and I think this pawn will then fall too. So the material adds up. It can become cumulative. There's little to no compensation for black. In fact, the 2-point material difference is actually reading as over 4.5 material difference on the evaluation bar. So the best move actually is, it wants you to crash through on e5. Bishop takes immediately. And why is that? Well, because the queen is hanging. It's unprotected. It's undefended. This knight is pinned. This knight might as well not be a defender at all. And white realizes this. They're crashing through now. The house crumbles. Black's time management was a big factor in making this blunder, because they didn't have the time to see bishop was skewering the queen and the rook. So we have the B pawn lashing out at the queen. The queen steps up and is now even more involved in the picture. Here we see we can follow through. Rook takes on e5. Again, no fear of the knight ever capturing. So at this stage, not only have we won the exchange, but we've also won a very important central pawn. The material advantage is climbing. We can play here rook to d5. I think is a very solid move, and that's what white plays. Queen steps back, trying to get something going. Even if you get this one check, all the pawns are protected. The checks are gone. But white doesn't even want to give access to the back rank. White says, I control the d file, and now I control the e file as well. Let's just get these queens off the board, shall we? Black is going to be in a tough spot. So where does the queen go? Probably back to c8, if I had to guess. And it turns out that was true. And now here I would consider rook c5, just pinning the knight to the queen. I mean, you could also play queen to c5. Also looks very reasonable. But yeah, white's having a good time here. White up the material, and their job now is to convert. So interestingly, h4, just trying to stir up some trouble. H5 from black, putting the kibosh on that, stopping that. And now a3, some pawn moves, king steps up. So back rank checks, no more. The diagonal is fairly covered by this knight, the minor piece that black has left, controlling some important central squares, but unfortunately this rook is just having a great time and is going to dominate the knight. I do want to see white attempt to maybe win some more material, so we'll see how they can do that. Yeah, and here they start off with attacking the knight. Major threat here, queen to c5. and that pins the knight to the queen. Now, black could get out of the pin. They could bring their knight here, and that defends the queen. But the point is, white would then be trading queens. So any trades at this point are just going to be more and more helpful for white as every move continues. So here we see the knight go back, but oh my goodness, this knight is going to be completely dominated by the rook. So we start off with a check here. The king cannot go to the back rank, as rook d8 is going to be a fork, and rook d8 here is the game winner nonetheless, as mate is threatened on h8, winning the queen. So we see resignation at this point. UNC Chapel Hill goes up 1-0. Number 1 seed, they're now a draw, a half point away from clinching the Collegiate Chess League Summer 2025 Team Chess Battle Championship. Can Virginia Tech bring it back? They're in a must-win situation, but the board is going to be flipped. They're going to switch colors, and they will have the white pieces in their must-win situation. So that was a great start, game number 1. Let's see if they'll start game number 2 any moment. They might be rematching, and here we go. We do see it. So game number 2 with the white pieces, we see a Caro Kann here with black from Chapel Hill. And yeah, white deciding, do we take, do we push, maybe a little fantasy. That's what I like to play. Any fantasy enjoyers? I'd be happy to see it. All right, so they play the main line. Knight to c3. We see a trade. Knight offering another trade. Knight takes. This is doubling the f-pawns, but opens up for queen and bishop. Bishop comes out, and black's already ready to castle. White has a little bit of catch-up work to do. Probably bring the knight out here, but you do have to keep an eye out of this check, because if we block with the bishop, that could get piled on. So the knight ends up going to e2, queen and bishop throwing a punch at the h-pawn and a very aggressive h5. Now, first thought, is that a mouse slip? Because maybe they meant h6. This is an aggressive attack, and this king hasn't even castled, and this king has. So this is kind of like Uno reverse card. I'm castling kingside, and I'm attacking you kingside, and your king's not even kingside. White decides to castle long queenside, and I really like this. This is a must-win situation for Virginia Tech with the white pieces. Computer's giving them a question mark already, and the simple answer wants to just take that knight, give up the bishop pair. Hey, feeling chessy? How are you doing? Yeah, here, what is it like? The move king to b1, a classic combination with the queenside castles. What else is there? Like c4, it likes a3. These are kind of questionable moves in my opinion. I would be considering trying to open up this king, right? Taking advantage of the fact that I castled queenside, putting these pawns to work, trying to open up the h-file. And I love how UNC Chapel Hill, they've been playing so fast. They've been ahead of the clock all of the first game, including the second game. They've been adding on with their increment to over 10.5 minutes. And after this move, the computer already is questioning it. And black seems like they are as well, because they're pausing, they're thinking, they're contemplating taking the knight with the bishop. This is always a thing that you have to just be looking at. This knight, it's attacking this pawn, right? And do you want to push this pawn to protect that pawn? I don't think so. So this is why I thought maybe black mouse slipped h5. I thought this was way too aggressive. Maybe they should have gone to just h6. But yeah, somehow, some way, this move Computer just likes black. I don't exactly understand takes, and just bishop to e6 and just play from there. Another move it likes is actually bishop to g4, hitting the rook. And my gut instinct to just block with f3, that does hang this bishop, interestingly. Do I know if Emily has any upcoming tournaments? I don't. But I do know Emily is streaming again regularly, so it's possible that she's mentioned it or talked about it. Shout out to Emily Plays Chess, doing a great job over at the Charlotte Chess Center. She was just in Vegas, and I believe they've just done a podcast episode with Dina and my boss, Danny Wrench, talking about chess.com, talking about Magnus, talking about Hans. You know, the same old, the huge. Also, Danny's writing a book. He actually already wrote the book. The book is already printed. You guys can pre-order it if you want to learn all about Danny. Am I a coach? I love to give lessons, especially to streamers. I wouldn't call myself a coach, though. I think that would be a little disrespectful to the real coaches out there. But I do like teaching. So if you think that I'm a coach because I teach chess, then I think that's a fair opinion. So really, it just comes down to your definition, I guess, of a coach. But it's not like I'm running any programs or teams. I just like sharing general chess knowledge. So call me what you will. All right, so king to b1, keeping an eye on this a pawn, and now black launching their attack b5. So this is an interesting dilemma here. And I say it's a dilemma because it's white's turn, and white's down on the clock. White's in the must-win situation, and yet it seems like UNC Chapel Hill, they're just back to work. And they might just continue rolling the pawn storm. Yeah, all pressure on Virginia Tech. Again, a must-win situation. Now, what happens? I know you're all thinking, what happens if Virginia Tech wins this game? Because then it'll be tied 1-1. It's a best of 2. So if it's tied 1-1, then we'll go to overtime. There's going to be a tiebreaker game. And I'll read over that format there. If it's tied 1-1, a tiebreak match will be played with a 5+2 time control. If that game is a tie as well, then they'll play additional games with a 3+2 time control until the tie is broken. Now that being said, I think Black's gonna get at least a draw. I think this is going to be the last game, and I think UNC Chapel Hill should get the championship win. Their team is a very strong team. As I had mentioned previously, their number one player, Noah, is 2,600 plus at rapid rating, very strong player. And even their hand, Naveen, very strong player as well. So, very strong team, and I'm loving the attack, and I'm loving the time situation for Black as well in particular. It looks like White, I mean, you start with this. What, are you going to play G4 next? That would be a pawn sacrifice. It would help open up lines against the king. This king, like with this pawn on H5, I was questioning this. Knight on F8, there is no mate. I mean, it's guarding all these squares. So the king is feeling pretty cozy here. This king already has the bishop pointing at it, and there's no knight on C1. And these pawns are already inching their way. You don't know when black will strike or where black will strike, but you know there will be a strike because that's what all signs are pointing to right now is this king. So I can feel the pressure already mounting. The computer also in favor of black already. So a Caro Kann defense by black played very well. So far, so good. The best move, the computer's saying play c4. Fight back against the storm. Now that might just hang this pawn immediately. But you would have this discovery. So that's a very interesting idea. What else is there? Rook h to e1 is also a very solid move. Bishop to f5. Yeah, that also checks out. Trying to trade my piece for your piece. This is a very strong piece for sure. This piece also looks strong, but you know, with the knight here, as I mentioned, this isn't so good. So trading this bishop for this bishop is favorable for white. Atlantic Open in DC on August 22nd and 24th. If Emily plays that, I hope I'll play her. So you're signed up for that. Well, best of luck to you. That sounds exciting. Atlantic Open in DC. Yeah, I know she's in Charlotte, so I don't know how close that is. It's probably not that far, but I don't know if Emily knows of that event. Maybe you could ask her on her broadcast next time she's live. Be sure to give her a follow. I'm sure you already are. And maybe you have your notifications on. And she streams pretty regularly, like multiple times a week, I believe. Virginia might be wasting too much time. Yeah, Virginia now already below 5 minutes. UNC Chapel Hill still over 9 minutes. Both these schools on the East Coast. I don't know how close Chapel Hill is from Charlotte, but I assume Virginia Tech is probably pretty close to DC. I know DC is pretty close to Virginia. I would say Virginia or DC is in Virginia, but I guess technically it's a separate thing. Anyways, Virginia Tech, they're playing rook from H to G1. They want to play G4, but they didn't want to play G4 immediately and potentially giving up that pawn. That being said, knight comes out, hits the bishop. Wow, I'm actually surprised. I thought we could take. Can we not take? That to me looks like a free pawn. But, you know, what do I know? What do I know? I'm just a guy. I'm just a dude. Why don't we take this? It's not even a top 3 move. So I really must be messing this up. Yeah, bishop came back pretty quick. The Virginia Tech players, let me look at, yeah, all these players understand. If queen takes, queen d5. Okay. Did they see that? Did they know? I don't know. I didn't see it. I didn't see it and I didn't know. But these players all saw it and they all know. So here we are. Bishop came back to c1. Pawn push. And now if you play a3, you're going to get skewered again. That was the tactic that cost him the first game. So fool me once, shame on you. But fool me twice, shame on me. So Virginia Tech, I don't think they're going to push that a-pawn. Oh, that's really awesome, Feeling Chessy. You should ask them if they're going to play chess in college, because I can connect them to these players, to their club. The hand, Naveen, is actually one of our ambassadors at UNC Chapel Hill. So they have a very strong chess club, and they compete in the Collegiate Chess League. We also have the College Ambassador Program, which I can link here. It's straight up just chess.com/college. You can't forget it. Highly recommend, because there's a lot of college chess players. There's a community, and that's where you can, go play chess, make some friends. It's a good time. All right, bishop to f5, looking for that bishop trade, and now queen steps up, threatening the old checkmate on a2. And so we see that trade. Rook takes, keeping the pawns doubled, but keeping that rook eyes wide open on the file. And white's saying, I got to contest this right away. Black's going to double up here. The threat, taking the rook. We could protect the rook. We could also trade. Trading might be best, but it might not be. You could also play queen d2, but you got to do something. You could go here, actually. I think is interesting. The computer might not think it's interesting. Shout out to the Reed College chess team. What's up, chess dude guy? Are you part of the Reed College chess team? And is the Reed College chess team part of the College Ambassador program or the Collegiate Chess League? And if not, I should probably already know. Where is Reed College? I have a place in my mind, but I'm not sure if it's... Okay, yeah, I was gonna say Portland, Oregon. Um, I've talked to people at Portland State that knew people at Reed College, and I've tried contacting them, and I might have years ago, but I don't think we've ever followed through with anything. So, shout out to you for stopping by, first off, and also just playing chess, watching chess, supporting the Collegiate Chess League by watching this broadcast. I love this move. It's just annoying. It's going to force the trade. And essentially, we don't push because that will fall. And we can't just sit back and do nothing because black's going to trade everything on e1. And then lo and behold, our g-pawn's going to be hanging. So yeah, we play queen to d1, guarding our rook. Yeah, I mean, bishop d2 I think is a similar idea. We're just guarding the e1 square, essentially. But yeah, this is getting annoying for white, and it's because our options are becoming more and more limited. We have less things that we can do, and it's because our pieces are tied down to defending things. So the queen comes back. But now black controls the file. This rook is just babysitting a pawn. Queen here defends the pawn now, so the rook can move, but where can it really move to? We don't control e1 like we could have maybe if we had played bishop d2. Is Purdue in the CCL? I'm going there this fall. The answer is yes. Purdue is in the Collegiate Chess League. Joey, welcome. And congrats on getting into Purdue. Shout out to Indiana. Yeah, you guys, if you're trying to connect with your college chess club, seriously join our Discord server. It's the College Chess Discord server. We have thousands, literally thousands of chess players from all around the world, all at different universities. Purdue is one of them. I know a couple schools in Oregon. Fun fact, I actually lived in Oregon. That's why I visited Portland State. I visited Corvallis, that's Oregon State, and I visited Eugene, the Ducks at University of Oregon. And they all have chess clubs. And Reed College, I've heard, has a chess club. Chess Dude Guy already giving them a shout out. And I would love if they also joined, and maybe Oregon could have their own college chess championship. And also, I think Portland should also have another school. I think it's Lewis and Clark College, if I'm not mistaken. Also, another school in Oregon that just joined our College Ambassador program, Southern Oregon University. You worked in West Lafayette once. West Lafayette, I think that's in Indiana, but I'm trying to think of the school. Because I don't think, it's not that I don't think, I don't know where. There's a couple of schools in Indiana. Obviously, you have Purdue, you've got Indiana University, which I personally have visited. That I do know is in Bloomington. But the other major school in Indiana is Notre Dame, of course. But I'm like blanking on the cities. But I do know West Lafayette, I'm pretty sure. LNC is where Purdue is. Okay. Do I see the evaluation bar myself? I do see the eval bar. I see what you guys see because I'm the guy putting it on. So 1.5 minutes for Virginia Tech again, getting super. This is a even worse time control than their previous game. They had 2.5 minutes to 6 minutes. This is 1.5 minutes to 7 minutes, and here they play G4 with this rook. They're gonna stir up some trouble over here. They're attacking the knight. They're attacking the pawn. At the same time, they're hanging this pawn. But this knight is in trouble. So what is the best move here? Knight to h4 is being recommended. Probably you do want to move the knight. Probably you don't want to take. Although taking is interesting because now you have to decide which way you want to take. If you take with the rook, then maybe you're losing the pawn. So maybe you would take again and the knight has to move again. So they do take. And now here we see pawn takes fairly quickly. Now the only hesitation I had about taking with the pawn is that we're kind of blocking our rook that we perhaps wanted to open up. But maybe we'll continue the pawn push. So now the knight really does have to move. The knight has to go somewhere. And where can the knight go? Knight has a couple of options. Probably you don't want to go to h6. Probably knight h6 is one of the worst options. Knight here hits the queen. Now you could trade if you want, but you could also move your queen. And previously the computer liked knight h6, attacking this pawn, but there's no pawn on f3 anymore because this pawn was traded. And so now the computer's favorite move here is actually knight to d6, which could reroute the knight more centrally. Isn't it cheating? Well, I'm not playing Jovo. I'm commentating. So I am watching other players play. All right, so we do see knight to e3. This does hit the queen. We don't see the trade. We see queen up to d3, punching the knight with the queen, now forcing the knight to move, or maybe the queen could have defended the knight. They could have maybe potentially gone for a trade if they wanted to, but they did not. And I think trading would be bad, actually, because then we could pin the knight to the rook and probably win a piece. So that's why we see the knight move. The knight goes to none other than c4, an explosive square. Very nice central location for this knight, just right in front of the queen, or the king, excuse me. This bishop doing its part to keep the knight at bay. 1 minute here for Virginia Tech to 5 minutes for UNC. You want to play b3, b3 attacking the knight, but the problem that I have with b3 is you're opening that a file. Pushing pawns in front of the king is a recipe for disaster, because if the a file opens up, maybe this pawn pushes, right? This pawn is pinned to the queen. Maybe we push the pawn. Maybe the queen and the rook can line up. So b3 is kind of a dangerous move to make. It's a little scary. I would be scared to make that move. Also, you know, you're kicking the knight. The knight could just go back again somewhere. So it's not like the knight's trapped or anything. So instead, we see another pawn push here. White's just trying to get this attack going. Reminder, black wins the match with a draw. Black has draw odds. So any form of repetition, any stalemate, any draw offers, these are going to be automatic win conditions for UNC Chapel Hill. White, Virginia Tech, they are in a must-win situation. They have to go all out. They need the full victory point in order to force a tie break. This is the championship on the line. You're kind of bad. No need to be sorry, and also you're not bad. You're 1700. 1700 is a strong player. And as a reminder, the Collegiate Chess League has multiple divisions. So let me actually pull up the Team Chess Battle 7th Division. The championship teams in that bottom bracket, they are team average of 1400 or less. So you're in good company. The Collegiate Chess League does not discriminate by rating. Okay, knight to e5. Like I had mentioned, the d pawn was pinned to the queen. So the knight hits the queen. Queen steps out of that. Interestingly, we could see g6, but again, I advise against pushing the pawns in front of the king. That could be weakening. But with this queen move, we see a threat against the knight. The knight should probably move, and that could open up a possible queen trade. Now, if I'm white, I don't necessarily want to trade queens. So, interestingly, knight f3, that's going to hit the rook. That's also going to offer a queen trade. So, very, very interesting to see what black will do. I do think the knight has to move. As I had mentioned, you could play g6 if you really want to. It's not the end of the world. It does kick the queen away out of this pen, but the knight's going to have to move nonetheless. And if I'm black, again, I'm not worried about trading queens. I don't mind if we try to go into an endgame. That being said, black structure is probably going to be worse. You've got the doubled pawns. If you trade queens, it's going to be isolated pawn. But this could be good activity, right? The knight and the rook would then open up and control e1. So this rook is going to have a much better time than this rook, for example. And yeah, that's exactly what we see here from Chapel Hill. From the black pieces, we see knight f3. So there's two things going on here. A queen trade is possible, and the knight is attacking the rook. Queen cannot take the knight as it's defended. So we do see the queen trade. Pawn recaptures, and now this knight hitting the rook. The rook's going to have to find a new home. So where does that rook go? Again, we cannot go to e1. e1's heavily controlled by black's pieces. In fact, black might just bring that rook to e1 next move, no matter what. So that being said, white could throw a punch against the knight with their rook, which makes a lot of sense. But also notice this pawn is hanging on h4. So the knight move is a fork, hitting the rook and the pawn. That's why the rook comes to h1 and only move here. And now I'm heavily considering bringing in the rook, right? You have two pieces left. This knight's doing a great job controlling some very important key squares in this position. And so now the rook should coordinate and join in on the fun. White, look at that clock, 20 seconds. It's not a good time over there at Virginia Tech. They are in the struggle bus. They're hoping for a blunder, but UNC Chapel Hill, they've been lights out so far, so good. With the black pieces here, can they get the job done? 2.5 minutes. FM Danila Polyanikov is Massachusetts championship or champion. I think I've played the Maine champion, or maybe it was Massachusetts. I think it was Maine. I played someone in a blitz game randomly a long time ago. Got paired with them and I won, which was really fun. Yeah, UNC, I mean, they're like perfectionists. What is the time increment? 10 plus 10. So they have 10-second increments. So it's not like anyone's getting flagged. Shout out to Mr. Cheese. Thanks for the follow. Welcome in. Hope you're doing well. Let us know if you're cheering for UNC Chapel Hill or for Virginia Tech. Feeling Chessy mentioned they're going to be playing in DC, so they're probably closer to Virginia Tech, but maybe they are close to UNC. I'm not sure. All right, Rook E2, one of the best places a rook could be on the second rank, and now Virginia Tech's clock is ticking. What did they come up with here? I think maybe G5 is a logical move. Rook here, okay, hitting the knight. Now the knight can give a check. This is an option. What else is an option? You can bring the knight to G1 and hit the rook, interestingly. And if we go rook here, there's rook here, pinning the bishop, defending the knight. You wish I could commentate your game. Are you playing in the Collegiate Chess League, or are you talking about your game in DC coming up? Do you stream? Is my follow-up question. Okay, G5 on the board. The threat is to take, but black can also take, and that will undouble their pawns. So white's trying to stir up something, but nonetheless, I think black's king is going to be pretty safe. There has not been that many trades. Uh, um, or there's been a lot of trades, I should say. There's not a lot of pieces left in this game. So white just gets declined and they push through. I would have considered a bishop f4 maybe hitting the knight yet again. But this pawn gives a nice little anchor for the knight, actually. Pawn here. I'm considering going against the f pawn here, but I think black would have just played g6. And so that perhaps is why white is now prompted to play g6 on their own, preventing black. So this pawn, it might be stranded. This is what happens when you have a doubled pawn. It's harder to protect them. That's why double pawns are weaker. So this is a nice move. I like the idea. I think we're trying to get to the f file. So looky here. We've got rook to h2, and both sides now less than 10 minutes. And what does the computer want here? Again, white has to win, so a draw is not going to be good enough. There's only two good moves for white. There's less than 10 seconds. The only two were trading or trading. So yeah, they take, and this is honestly good news for black. They just don't want to lose in this end game. This white king might have a better time, and there is a 3-on-2 majority here. Actually, white could potentially create a passed pawn. They could also maybe wiggle their way up and just win this. So it's gonna come down to how good Chapel Hill is at this end game. It's a knight versus a bishop. Notice a lot of pawns on light squares for Team Black, and that's probably by design, trying to combat the knight. So knight here doing a good job of keeping the king out of d3. Now the king has access to d3, but the knight's hitting the bishop. So the bishop has to move. Bishop comes back. This is boxing out the knight. And maybe he's going to come back here. I would be interested in this path. I am curious. The knight could come here, but you know, the knight could get kicked from the dark square. So we see a capture. This pawn's doing a good job keeping the king out. This bishop also trying to keep the king out as well. So the king would have to come all the way around here, and even so, this pawn is going to be immune from the king. So let's see. Are we threatening c4? Kind of. But this game, it might go the distance. It might go a while because there is that 10-second increment. So you see both players, both teams, I should say, are adding a bit of time back onto their clock. Almost up to a minute for Virginia Tech, still half a minute for Chapel Hill. And yeah, this game is going to be just kind of a little scramble as both teams are going to try to figure out. And this is where you want your hand to be a strong player. And both these teams, both sets of players, all very strong, definitely, for sure. But Virginia Tech, you can see they have the slight rating edge when it comes to the strength of the hands. Over 150 elo difference, actually. But their teammates, they're still giving them help. They're still giving them advice. Here we have the question. Do you take and invite the king in? No. Black says, I'm going to bring my king in. And now white says, I've got that connected pass pawn. And that's what I'm going to bank my success on in this game. So maybe this king is going to work his way around. Maybe going to try to support this pawn push. But black says, not so fast. I too have a passed pawn. But this king is going to try to come in. This king is getting in for sure. How? Yeah, if you ever take this, I'm going to take this, is the idea. Bishop comes around this way, boxing the knight out. Knight says, I'm going to give you a check because, your king's no longer going to be attacking my pawn. That being said, this king says, I'm going to attack your knight. Okay. I think the king's going to come back here. There's really no way to protect this pawn other than creating another attack against this pawn. That being said, check this out. If you go king f3, guess what black's going to do? They're going to check you again. Why? Because you're going to go back, and that's a repetition. And as I had mentioned, black has draw odds. That means they like repetition. They like repeating the position because that gets them one step closer to drawing the game. And so we see white's desperation here. They push the pawn, force the knight back. The knight's guarding the promotion square. And now the king steps back up because we're not getting checked again. So now if the king takes this pawn, we will take this pawn. And interestingly, maybe our king gets in. This game is not over yet. The bishop can attack the knight. The knight's going to have to go to the promotion square. Otherwise, this pawn might be pushing through. So, yeah, I mean, bishop here probably is a bit more accurate because I guess if we go here, there's a chance they go to a8. A8's such a sad place to be. So we see the knight goes to the promotion square, and now the knight's completely dominated by this bishop. This is a beautiful bishop, a really sad knight, to be honest. So it's very narrow path here black can take. This was one of the two moves. They could have also taken on g6. These are literally the two moves that keeps the position at bay. Anything else, and white was winning, which honestly is not surprising. None of the pawns can move, and the knight definitely can't move. So the king would have to do one of two things for sure. This bishop now attacking this pawn. Now the king takes. Now this king takes and steps up. White is pushing here, folks. Don't let this fool you. White is pushing. So I'm very tempted to take this and try to bring the king in. That being said, is that winning? Is that going to be a draw? What's going on here, folks? This king is boxing our king out, right? So what to do? What to do? Bishop comes back. Now this pawn could push. The king could move. Knight could technically go here, but I don't think you want to do that. Takes, king here, right? Push. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Takes, push, king here. Maybe you don't want to go there. I don't know. Now it's Chapel Hill that's in time pressure. Less than 15 seconds to a minute for Virginia Tech. I think it's going to be a draw, though. I don't think black's going to mess this up. I don't think white's going to be able to push through. If they had won this pawn, maybe. But even still, maybe the king gets around. I'm trying to think if our king can make its way around. But okay, we're working our way up. Maybe we can get to this pawn here. Attacking the pawn, you have to take or you have to push. This is forcing white's hand here. And this knight also keeping our king out right now. I would push because there's a chance black messes up and plays king here, and then we could take the knight. But what's going to happen is the knight's going to come back. But yes, pawn push is threatening to take the knight. Oh, so just taking right away. But this should be a draw. King here. Maybe king here. King here. Maybe king here. Yeah. And this is going to be a draw. So Chapel Hill looking like they're going to get the win. Here. Oh, wow. Okay, giving up their pawn. They're saying we're confident in our king and pawn in game, and we know this is a draw. So, yeah, going straight back. White's going to try, but black will not let the pawn through. So, this is the second time I've seen that position. Check and stalemate. So, game is over. The match is over. The championship is over. We've got University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Congratulations to players Noah and Naveen, the in names, taking down Virginia Tech in 2 games, 1.5 to a half. Congratulations to them, and thank you all for watching. That's going to be it for today. I'm going to send you off on a raid. But we do have one final event remaining in the Collegiate Chess League Summer 2025 season. That's going to be this Thursday. We do weekly prize arenas. Everyone's welcome to join. Hello, Mystery Man. Raid Nemo. We'll look at who we should raid. There's a lot of streamers out there that we appreciate, and I'm sure I'll probably raid Nemo or someone else maybe. So we'll see. But yeah, if you guys are a college chess player and you want to learn more about the Collegiate Chess League, how you can play, how you can register your club or your team, please, please, please reach out to me. Join our Discord server. My name is Joe Bruin online. I go by Joe Bruin online. My real name is Joe Lee, as you can see below me. But also check out our ambassador program. But that being said, thanks all for being here. You're all incredible. You all rock. And I will see you all on hopefully Thursday. Like I said, that is the last event of this summer season. And then we will be announcing our regular season, our fall season. India also, by the way, has their autumn season already announced. The registration deadline is technically tomorrow. So join our Discord. All the announcements and the links and the descriptions are there. If you're a player from India, I definitely recommend checking that out. Mystery Man, thanks for the follow. I accept all friend requests, so feel free to send me those. But yeah, thanks again, and I'll see you all hopefully Thursday. Take care. Feeling Chessy, thanks for the follow. Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of your Saturday.